Welcome to this demonstration on adding a cluster to a Cloud Foundation workload domain. Workload domains deployed in Cloud Foundation are created with a single vSphere cluster. However, cloud administrators can easily expand domains by adding additional vSphere clusters to quickly adapt to changing workload needs. We begin at the vSphere client where we see a domain named WLD01 with a single vSphere cluster named Cluster01. In the cluster there are 4 ESXi hosts. We will now use the SDC Manager to add a second cluster named Cluster02 to this domain. We begin by verifying that there are available hosts in the Cloud Foundation inventory. Here we can confirm that there are 4 unassigned hosts in the inventory, ESXi 9, 10, 11, and 12. We'll use all 4 hosts for the new cluster. From the Workload Domains tab, we navigate to the WLD01 workload domain. At the Host tab, we again see the 4 hosts assigned to Cluster01. At the Clusters tab, we see details for this cluster. To add a second cluster, we simply go to Actions and select Add Cluster. Our environment runs on modern hyper-converged infrastructure that is built on top of vSAN ready nodes, so we choose vSAN for the storage selection for our new cluster. Next, we provide a name for the new cluster. In this example, Cluster02. Along with the VLAN ID to use for the NSXT overlay networking. At the Objects Names screen, we can review the cluster object names. Note how the object names are derived from the cluster name that we assigned earlier. At the vSAN storage screen, we choose the value for the default vSAN storage policy for the new cluster. Here we accept the default of failures to tolerate equals 1. We then select the host that will be assigned to the new cluster. Based on our vSAN storage policy, 3 hosts are required. However, it is recommended that you always have at least 4 hosts in a cluster to support server maintenance and protect against unplanned server failures. At the license screen, we select the license keys that we will assign to the new cluster. At the review screen, we can review the configuration for the new cluster. And when we are ready to create it, we simply click Finish. The SDC Manager proceeds to automate the creation of the cluster by automating over 40 separate tasks to create the new cluster in the vCenter inventory, add the 4 hosts to the cluster, claim the local storage from each host and configure them into a vSAN data store, and prepare the host for NSXT. Here we see the workflow has completed successfully. Note that it typically takes around 15 minutes for the SDC Manager to create a new cluster. We have sped things up for this demo. At any time while the workflow is running or after it has completed, we can expand the workflow to view its associated subtask. Going back to the WLD01 summary screen, we now see there are 2 clusters in the domain. Cluster02 has been added, with 4 ESXi hosts assigned. Returning to the vSphere client, we now see Cluster02 in the vCenter inventory. Navigating to the Data Stores tab, we see that all 4 hosts are contributing storage to the vSAN cluster. Next, we will verify that all 4 hosts are configured inside of NSXT. From the SDC Manager dashboard, we can use the NSXT shortcut link to connect to the NSX Manager. Where we can confirm that both Cluster01 and Cluster02 are configured in the NSXT fabric. This concludes our demonstration on adding a cluster to an existing workload domain.